All right, this March, voters in Washington state passed an initiative that was entitled 2081. It was also known as the Parents' Bill of Rights. It ensures that parents are not left in the dark on details of their child's education, including the right to review their child's medical and counseling records. But the ACLU and some other groups challenged the law. This week, a Washington judge ruled against the ACLU, saying that the challenges did not show that this law would create harm necessary to warrant blocking it until a trial court judge could consider it. So following the decision, the Washington State Superintendent, Chris Yakel, said that schools in Washington will not enforce parts of the law that were challenged by the ACLU. So we have an elected official telling public employees to break the law. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Meg Kilgannon, Senior Fellow for Education Studies at the Family Research Council. She served in the Department of Education during the Trump administration, by the way. Meg, welcome back to Washington Watch. Good to have you.
It's great to see you, Jody. Thanks for having me.
All right, so this is astounding to me. The Washington State school superintendent is telling schools not to enforce state law, not to enforce the new Parents' Bill of Rights. Unbelievable. Your thoughts on this?
Right. Well, it really is incredible. The interesting thing about it is that this superintendent of schools has been in office since 2016, and he's in a primary election this August. It's a jungle primary where the top two vote getters get to be on the ballot in November. And so he thinks it's a good idea for him to oppose a law, a Parents' Bill of Rights, that wasn't just passed by the legislature, but the legislature was forced to pass it because the citizens of Washington state, through a ballot initiative, voted for it. So this is quite a move by him. When even the Democrats in the state legislature decide that they better not fight the people, the state superintendent is going to do the bidding of the left-wing teachers unions and the leftist interests of Washington state, and he's going to make sure that there's no forced outing of students in public schools.
It's just unreal. And look, I may be running down a little bit of a rabbit whole path with this, but is this move by the superintendent different from states like Arkansas or Texas or Louisiana or whatever, many other states, telling schools not to enforce the Biden administration's rewrite of Title IX or something like that? What's the difference?
Yeah, it's completely different because the Biden administration forcing states to adopt a federal policy when schools are the long-standing tradition in the United States is that schools are locally controlled. We want that. We want families to be in charge of their children's education. We want local control so that the values of our community are infused into our students, right? This is since the founding of our nation, this has been the attitude. And so the Biden administration is trying to upend that by imposing a federal regulation. This state superintendent is trying to undermine the people of his state who have said they want to locally control their schools, and they just want to be informed of what's happening in their schools. This legislation doesn't stop the Washington state bureaucrats from doing really grievous things, in my opinion. It just says that parents have a right to be notified if those things are done. And this is even too much for the state superintendent. So I really hope that people will be engaged in this election. To me, this is such a hopeful sign that the voters in Washington state passed 3 initiatives and they are going to be signed into law. And in a state like Washington state that's so deeply blue and has been so under the control of the Democratic Party for so long, when you see an initiative like this, it really gives you hope that this movement that we've been seeing around parents' rights is finally getting some traction and we're getting places.
That's a really great point, Meg. You know, when you see the people, not the legislators, the people pass something like this, it is very hopeful. But then you look at the top educator in the country defy the will of the people, the will of the legislature, the law itself. Absolutely unbelievable. All right, listen, we've got just a minute or so left, I think it's important that we also note that last month the Seattle public school clinics, it came to light that they were operating inside elementary and elementary schools, free gender treatments for students. Tell us about that.
Well, that really is sort of his cover, his political cover for making the statement that there are federal rules that will protect Washingtonians from themselves and Washington children from their parents, apparently. But the fact that in schools in Washington state there are school-based health clinics, that means that HIPAA and FERPA both apply. There's nothing in this law that undermines either of those federal provisions. But this duplicitous state superintendent of schools is going to pretend like there is, so that he can undermine the will of the people and the parents of his state. It's really shameful.
All this begs the question, whatever happened to a government of the people, for the people, by the people, when you have these legislators pushing against the people? It's frightening. Thank you, Meg Kilgannon. Always great to have you on the program. Appreciate it a great deal.
Thank you, Jody.